It's the Jack
and Kathy
Show.
Shit Show.
And there we go.
Yeah, how was that?
Okay,
Did you like
I
that
think if yeah.
Okay. Hi.
Can you, for anyone watching, can you put your face back in there and show the lights getting in your glasses?
Oh, there.
You look like those glasses that when we were kids would have the circle things and the springs would come out.
I know.
Remember?
I know. That's a nice little effect. I think I'll just keep my chin down, though, so that doesn't happen. The magic of the ring light.
Let's get you on that pad so you don't look so short. Can everyone see how healthy I look because I've lost some weight in this shirt?
Okay, so I'm always like fixing my hair when we get on camera. I'm like, oh, and you're like, how does my body look? How do I look in this shirt? Is this shirt good? Should I go put on a tighter shirt?
I don't think I said the words tighter.
I think you did because you want to see your muscles.
But
right now we can just see my muscles.
Okay. This is why we have no listeners.
I know. It's all my fault.
No, it's our fault. We don't do anything except we waste the first 15 minutes just being jackasseries.
That's okay. It can always be edited out. I'm not going to.
We can't edit anything. This is to be kept in perpetuity.
Okay. So you can see we're still in our shit show of a kitchen. We have made some progress, though, on the kitchen. We got our electrical inspection passed, and we've got some lighting, and we got our permits all applied for. And what else?
Plumbing will be ready for HVAC. We got the vents. You want to show the vent?
No, not yet. Okay. That's not very exciting to show a vent. But anyway, so progress is being made. But sometimes the wheels turn slowly in remodeling because you have to wait for the system. You have to wait for building permits and all kinds of permits, and then you have to wait for them to come look at it, and you're subject to their schedule, and we have to wait for We Energies to come out, which could take weeks and weeks. So anyway, it's a process. Doesn't always keep you on your schedule, but we're getting there. Someday we should always do our podcast in the kitchen so people can see the progress of our kitchen.
I was thinking that same thing when I was setting it up. Was how cool would it be? Because we're actually sitting where the table's going to be. We're very close to it, right?
Yes.
How cool would it be if we just set it up? I'm going to keep pointing my finger. How cool would it be if we set it? I think yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I have a theme to follow for this podcast.
Okay.
So I've been listening.
What day?
Well, I've been listening to all the I listen to them after we send them to Key. She produces them, and then I listen to them before I publish them in case there's anything, final edits. And I realize, especially the last we haven't published the last podcast yet. We're going to do that today. Mm-hmm. I talk too much.
Oh, that's what you've noticed, that you talk too much?
Yeah, it only took me, 60 episodes?
No, we're in our 20-something episodes. But the truth is, that's kind of how it is. It's not that I don't talk, but you do talk more than I do. Now you're not going to talk, are you? You're not going to say anything. You're like, I have so much to say, but I'm not. Because I'm just going to shut up.
So difficult to shut up.
But you do recognize that podcasts are about talking. So you don't hold back, babe. You just be you. Okay? So how about this? Can I talk about what our topic is today? Can I lead us into our topic?
Thank God.
Yeah. So we have started to keep track in our notes on our phone, possible shit show topics. And we came across a good one. It's what we're actually going to be handling very shortly. Some of the legal stuff. What are you doing, Jack?
I'm listening.
Okay.
I'm just getting prepared. Go.
Okay. So some of our legal stuff, we have embarked, we just sort of dove headfirst into our lives together, hook, line, and sinker. But I'm kind of proud of us, actually, for having that that conversation about finances and the conversation about how are we doing this when we embark on this house and the investment of the house and the remodeling
I
and
mean, the conversation
the legal,
of what's mine is yours and what's yours is yours conversation.
yeah, which is actually not true. So, so next week, Thursday, we are meeting with an attorney who's going to help us draft what's called a tenants in common. So Jack and I, as everybody knows, are not married yet, and we want to do this right. We want to be smart ass adults. We want to, I mean, statistically, we're supposedly not going to make it.
We're not.
But we're going to do our damnedest to make it.
Yeah, we'll try.
And I think it's really healthy to have sort of a legal conversation, a money conversation, how things are divided, and so on and so forth.
So let me, without talking too much,
You talk all you want.
let me ask you a question,
Okay.
young Kathleen Ann.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's prudent at our age to do these things for very obvious reasons, and that is, as we have built up our career, we have more assets that become more at risk. We have family members, like our kids specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Our wills, at least I know mine has, I think yours does too,
Yep.
give them access to those assets.
Yes.
Right? So they're going to get stuff. And so it makes sense then, particularly this time around and all the financial investments that we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
that we protect each other individually and each other as a couple. Right?
Absolutely.
Because of a few factors. Two primarily. We've now got a larger asset set than we had when we were 20 or 22.
Right.
Most people are like that.
Right. In the ideal world, you have some investments and various assets that you want to make sure
savings,
you're.
whatever.
Yep.
And then related to that, the odds are at our age and second time around that there's a 30% success rate. So
That is just a really crazy statistic.
you know what's interesting? No matter what happens to us, whether this goes on forever or this ends, we'll have a podcast and someone can always look back at it and go, that was the moment it ended because he talked too much. So I say all that because I don't know how to not talk too much. What it made me think of as you're talking about it is, despite the fact that the odds are a little bit more against us than if we were first time around in our 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and despite the fact that we have more assets than maybe you do when you're in your 20s, do you feel this is something that everyone should do when they're about to get married?
Absolutely.
Regardless of age or stage of
Oh,
like
gosh,
it's first
yeah.
time, or you think every couple, well, when I say do this, what is this to you?
Have the conversation about assets and money and will and living will and trust and what's going where. You have 3 children. I have 2 children. We both have individual assets. We have collectively decided, you already have your living will and you have things in a trust already, right?
Hmm.
So I've got all that drafted in, as soon as my lawyer says he's ready, I'm going to go in and sign it. And that in and of itself is a really important
Sleep
step.
with one eye open, by the way.
Yes, exactly. But that's a really important step, let alone in us, in our partnership and our relationship. For even an individual to have a living will and trust is super important. If anybody listening has never looked into that, please, please, please do. Having a will is not enough. It can still go to probate. It can still be contested. Your assets, it's not clear where things are going. People can get taxed. People can fight over it.
Yeah, I've already
whatever.
assigned beneficiaries to my checking account. It's all those kinds of things that
Absolutely.
you should do. So
It's an exhaustive number of questions, but it's super important to do it. And it's not expensive and it's not
No,
cheap.
and you don't need
It's
you don't need Uncle Sam though to take your money, and to me it's a small price literally a small price to pay
Right.
to make sure that your family and the ones you care about are taken care of. And then on top of it, it also defines how you want your end of days to look. Right.
And part of all that living will and trust is also medical. Who's got the medical authority? And
my kids were lining up to pull the plug. We were literally.
I remember you telling me early on that you had to clarify that that snuffing you out with a pillow in the middle of the night does not count.
Right. Even if I'm drunk one night, they can't just be like, "Oh, Dad,"
or you just piss them off.
Today's your time.
I'm so sorry, Dad.
Sam was the most eager for some reason to be in that role.
But yeah, so that's all part of it. So that's one topic, that there's this living will and trust, and you want to make sure that your assets are safe and they're accounted for. And while you have sound mind and body, you have made decisions for where those are going to be divided. And all of my stuff right now, it's all about my kids. So, but here you and I are. We have embarked on this partnership.
Both of us lonely. We got tonight, babe. Why don't you stay?
So, all right. I'm trying to get back on track.
So
after
here
that.
we are, you said, which got me into the...
Here we are. We decide to take on this house. And now it's like, all right, we're taking on this house together. We have decided to split it in half. The purchase in half. The investments in half, everything in half. We're doing it in a sort of a different way.
Well, the details to the peoples aren't as important as...
Correct.
This is...
the fact that it's been a discussion.
Yeah, this house cost a certain amount of money. We split the cost of living here.
Yep.
And all the attendant costs, right?
We share the cost to purchase
loans
it.
to eating dinner, right?
Yeah.
And then... this house will be worth more when we sell it. It just will. We've made it a better home. And so then we're going to have more money from that. And we're going to split that relative to whatever contribution we put in. Because we track who pays for what, right? So we know that kind of stuff. And then I think I know where you're going. This is an asset between the two of us now, right?
Yeah.
However.
And we're not married. So there is something that's called a tenants in common, which I had never...
Should we be sleeping in the same bed?
Oh, no. You can go in the spare room.
Okay.
There's something called tenants in common, which I have to say, I had never heard of it, that turn of phrase. I figured there was some kind of document to be drafted, but it never occurred to me that it actually had a name.
It means you pay me rent.
Yeah. That's what it means.
Well, can I, before you go down the details of tenants in common, what's really important is that we are getting this legal work done not because it's some sort of portend or foreshadowing of us.
Correct.
Of our relationship. Because clearly you guys have listened to the podcast and know that it's ups and downs, and we are all in on working through things because we're normal as any other relationship. We have moments, and this is more, what if something should happen? What if either one of us gets sick?
Or what if we break up?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're not doing it for breaking up purposes only.
No,
we're trying to think of all of the
you
possible
think through
reasons
those scenarios, and it actually feels really good to talk about it.
Well, I feel this way, and I know you do too. I trust you that if something were to happen to me, I know you wouldn't be like, oh, your dad only put $100 into this house. Stop winking at the camera. I know we trust one another to really care about how that would play out for our children.
Yeah.
At the same time, you never know what kind of, again, I don't think either of our families would be this way. You just don't know. And when there's no legal document,
right,
it opens the door for someone, Uncle Sam even, to put their fingers into the mix. And we don't want that.
Yeah.
And so
sure.
I think your point in wanting to bring this up today is really that everybody should do this. And it doesn't mean you are foreshadowing a demise. It means you're just protecting each other.
No, and I would argue that it would actually make your relationship stronger, because to be able to get to the point where you can have that discussion about finances, about the future of finances, about joining finances, about
because you're
healthcare.
cool with 5149, right? We've talked about that.
That would be 5050, my friend.
What if
There's
it was
no
51 in your favor and
49.
49 against me?
Well, that works.
See? I agree with you 100% because I know in my will, given the fact that I played football and will always be perpetual, and plus have a history of dementia on my dad's side, will always be worried about the effects of my brain.
Yeah.
And so this will may change a little bit, in that you may have more
Right.
responsibility the longer our relationship goes. But right now, it's not just the financial. It's if I start to experience some of these head traumas, they start to manifest themselves in some presentable way. No, Sam, that is not a reason to grab a pillow in the middle of the night, put it over my face just because I forgot my keys.
Sam,
I think that's what Sam was looking for.
Sam, I got you covered.
I think it's all of it, because in mine it says I want my brain donated to a particular place. So it's not just are the numbers in alignment, what do the assets look like, how are we going to split that, how would we divide it among each other and among the kids. Again, when you're in your 20s or 30s and you're first getting together, you don't have many of those train cars behind you. You don't have kids to think about. You simply have each other, maybe some assets you brought from your careers or some investment properties. I don't like the term prenuptial agreement because it makes it seem so aggressive. I just think at the same time, maybe it's just a word in my head, there's nothing wrong with sitting down and have these discussions. So anyway,
Absolutely.
You brought it
I
up.
think-
I'll stop.
I think when I was young, I thought that a prenup was really for people who were wealthy. I really did. I didn't think that was something important to have, no matter what age you are. The living will and trust. And again, clarifying, it's not just a will; it's putting things into a trust or multiple trusts, and how that protects. So if you're not familiar with trusts,
Well, what I would recommend is that.
hold on.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hold on, mister. If you're not familiar with trusts, go to TikTok. I swear to you.
And I was just going to give what I would
Go to
call,
TikTok
what I was going to give
University
was,
and Google
was
that
what
shit.
I was going to give was actual real advice. And I was going to say, go see
TikTok
a
is
lawyer.
real advice.
I was going to say, make sure you go see a lawyer who specializes in family planning.
No doubt.
Because
for sure.
sometimes wills are appropriate, sometimes trusts are appropriate. It really depends on your circumstance.
And if anyone in the Milwaukee or Wisconsin area needs a lawyer, DM us and I can pass along the name of the great guy we're using. But we are meeting him with him next week. And we're going to lay out how we want this to look. And you have to go through every possible scenario to say, and these are discussions we've had. So we have decided everything's 50-50. We have decided that we're sharing the mortgage, we're sharing the expenses, we're sharing the ownership. Then we've also decided that if one person wants out, we will give the other person the first right to buy the other person out.
Well, we haven't talked about any of these things specifically.
Well, we've touched on some of them. Well, maybe we'll touch on them now. So, and people can witness live. We'll get like this knockdown brawling fight.
I don't know that I want to talk about it. No.
Oh, stop it.
I don't.
Why?
Because I haven't thought it through yet.
Well, we've talked about a lot of these things already. We've talked about how, it's sort of like this is the beginning stages of our relationship, and this is our first venture into a joint asset and melding money together in a way. And what will come next is our business and how we're going to define that. But we've decided that everything prior to meeting each other is its own entity and it's staying intact. So we're not going to meld our assets from before we met. It's starting with this asset and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Correct? That
Yeah.
we've discussed and decided.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm including you in the will of current assets and you're not including me in the will of current assets.
No,
so don't worry, kids, you're getting your stuff if we both kick it.
I think what I mean more is that I'd rather sit with the attorney and know what are our possibilities, because I think it's really up to how creative we want to be. And an attorney, the reason I don't want to talk about it necessarily right now is I'd rather sit across from the attorney and go, this is where we're leaning. What's the plus sides and downsides
I think that
to
could be interesting to talk about where we're leaning. And then next week after our actual appointment and things are concrete and being drafted, we could talk about how we shifted that. There could be like an update to this conversation.
I think I'm a little more private than you are.
Well, we're not going to talk numbers.
No, I don't know that anyone needs to know what our agreement is. So
okay,
that's all.
All right.
I think that's between us.
Okay.
Does that make you uncomfortable?
No, I just don't think there's anything to hide, to be honest.
I don't, would you ever publish this on a website? Go, here's the Jack and Kathy agreement. I don't think anyone else needs to know what our agreements are.
It's just the topic of how we're looking at it and the effect that has on our relationship.
That's about as deep as I want to go publicly.
Okay.
I really mean it.
Fair enough.
I don't need people to know that if you leave, I get this and that percent. No one needs to know that. That's ours.
Well, in general, I will say that starting with this house, we are, it's a joint asset and we want the other person to benefit should something happen to us.
To me, the biggest...
Like if I die, I want you to have the house in its entirety.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
No, I think the theme is correct. I'm cool with staying high up in the clouds that it's important, no matter what stage or age you're at in your relationship, to have a discussion about life and death stuff, because we all gonna kick it.
Absolutely.
And in that life and death stuff in life is endings sometimes, even though we don't want that to happen.
Right.
So to save yourself a shit ton of issues later on in life, it's important to, it sounds like I'm saying prepare for divorce or prepare for separation. And I guess that's what insurance is, right? Like you have car insurance and health insurance, not because you hope to get into an accident or hope to go to the doctor. It's just that when you do, you're covered. And I think we agree that this legal stuff is the same thing. It just gets a little more complicated in my mind as you get older because of the odds stacked against things working.
Yeah.
That's not us saying that. That's just what's out there, right?
I know. Crazy
Best hitter in baseball
that...
batted 400 once, basically, right? So failed 60% of the time. The best hitters today fail 70%. And then to also talk about the medical part of it. Who's going to take care of whom? What does that look like?
Yeah.
I mean, it would suck to know that we're together. So we're together, by the way, our anniversary is just a few days ago. We're together 16 months. It would suck to know after 2 years or 4 years or 10 years that you'd be like, later, dude, you're too sick for me. That would suck.
Yeah, that would suck.
And yet it could happen. So what do we do in those circumstances?
Right.
And so I just think it's smart, and I'm glad you agree with it, to not throw caution to the wind, put things down specifically, make it between you and I so there's no other external influences, which again is why I don't want to talk details with everybody. Should something happen, they might be exposed to that. But until then, I think no matter what age you're at, it's a healthy conversation to have. It doesn't forecast disaster.
Definitely not. And again, my argument would be that it actually can help avoid disaster. It's disaster prevention.
How do you see it that way? Not that I disagree with you, but how do you see it that way?
That these can be really hard conversations. And I think early stages of a relationship, especially a second time around relationship like you and I are, I think there's a lot of romance, a lot of romancing the situation. And I think this is a really real thing that has to be addressed. And there are uncomfortable aspects to the conversation that are going to be present. But at the end of the day, I think it can be healthy and actually unifying as long as you guys as long as two people can reach an agreement. But better now when you're in a healthy
Well, hell,
place
wouldn't that be
than
cool?
down the road.
Yeah, I mean,
When things really do, if a relationship does start to fall apart.
well, wouldn't it be telling if we go to the attorney on Thursday and he brings up a point and we're way far apart on it? I mean, I don't mean telling it as in forecasting disaster. No, but I think wouldn't it be good to have that discussion, right? 'Cause
No
we don't
doubt.
know that shit.
No doubt.
And here's the other thing too that the peoples need to know is that we're also starting Anata Realty, right?
Yeah.
We started it already. We've got
Anata Homes.
website
Yep.
underway, Anata Home, sorry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've already got the LLC taken registered. So there's a lot of financial and even emotional elements to this relationship, and better to just line all that up. And
Right.
again, I think what happens when you buy life insurance or other things, you think, oh, it's forecasting my death. It's a predictor, or it's tempting.
Yeah.
It's just paper.
Right.
It's just saying, hey, look, we're just protecting ourselves. That's
Right.
all that is.
Exactly.
And I don't want the government to come in. This is not a political discussion, a politics discussion. But how silly would we be if we had all these assets and didn't get those legal documents in order? And then next thing you know, the government comes in and takes a bunch of money just because we don't have those documents together.
Right.
That just seems irresponsible,
Right.
regardless of what political affiliation
We're
you have.
way too old to not be responsible.
Anyone's too old to be we're irresponsible sexually, I think. That's where we are really irresponsible there.
Really?
Boy, was that a good segue to end the podcast. I love the fact that we treat this as a relationship, and that's all aspects of it: financial, emotional, spiritual, whatever we define that as, physical. I mean, it's all together. So,
And that communication is there, that we're willing to talk about the tough stuff. And we definitely are.
you're always willing to tell me when I'm wrong. I love that.
Yes, I am.
So here's the thing. Let's shift gears because we're
Okay.
trying to keep a few of these podcasts to 30 minutes.
Yes.
And if you guys recall, we used to do something with
Paired.
Paired.
Yes. I know,
And-
Aaron, you really love that.
Well, I think what
Wisconsin Aaron. Hi, girl.
Hi, girl. What Wisconsin Erin likes about it is that she feels that it prompts questions of relationships, and she
Yes.
likes getting to know one of us.
Yes, yes.
So, and we're not dissing Paired. We used it quite a bit when we first started
Yeah,
dating.
we kind of fell off of that.
We did, and then we both love a family called the Gottmans, Gottmans. Follow them, read their books.
I can't imagine. There's got to be very few people on this planet that haven't heard of the Gottmans. But if you haven't,
Yeah, look them up.
Google
They're
that.
phenomenal relationship experts. And in fact, it's funny because just yesterday, Kathy and I were joking, and we'll do this like, well, the Gottmans say.
well, the Gottmans
The
would have done
Gottmans would have done it like
this.
this.
I'm like, no, they wouldn't.
So, and the Gottmans would say that you should never say no, they wouldn't. That was on one of their podcasts.
Oh, sure.
It was titled "Don't Say No, They Wouldn't"
Whatever.
from the Gottmans.
The Gottmans would say,
So we jokingly do that back and forth. Anyway,
do.
they came up with a relationship app called Card Decks.
here, let's
Gottman
show it
Card
to the
Decks.
camera
Let me
right
try
now.
to show it.
So, yep,
Yeah,
that's awfully bright.
Yeah, that's
Can't
probably
see
not
that.
going to work.
That's not going to
Yeah,
work.
nope.
Gottman Card Decks.
They've got Gottman Card Decks, and they have all these different categories. So love maps, open-ended question, rituals of connection, etc. So
There's a lot.
There's let's see, 2 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 14 different categories.
Yeah.
So we thought it'd be kind of interesting today. By the way, today's Veterans Day. I don't know if you knew that we're recording this on Veterans Day.
I love that.
Shout out. My dad was a veteran. But your dad in the Army in some way?
No.
Oh, he wasn't. Okay. My dad was in Korea. So shout out to our veterans today. Thank you. As we're recording this. So anyway, there's a bunch of categories in here.
Pick one. I'd
So-
like to get back to this. I'd like to. I love.
You want to get
this.
back to these questions? thing?
Yeah,
What do you mean
yeah.
like doing that?
Okay. You
Ooh,
can turn
sorry.
off your ringer.
Do you mean like for the podcast?
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
in general in our
No,
lives?
I love ending one.
Okay.
Well, that too. But
All right.
so here's the thing. You mean in our lives? I love saving them for the podcast because we do these spontaneously, so we don't know what the other person's gonna answer.
Correct.
I think that keeps it authentic. So
So can I offer one? Because it to me, whoops, that's not what I wanted. Sorry. One of the things that the peoples don't know, because you're only seeing us once a week, and I half joked with Kathy, saying, wouldn't it be cool if we had a camera crew following us for a year? I don't know. I think it'd be kind of fun.
Kathy's eyes are bugging out right now.
I just thought it'd be kind
I'm
of...
going to have to wash my hair more than once a week then. That's a problem.
I think that should be a goal anyway. I think showering is really important.
Washing the
Can we
hair
put
is
that in the
highly
legal document?
overrated. No.
I'm going to sneak in a clause. Kathy promises to shower once a
It's
day.
not the showering. It's the washing of the hair.
Your hair smells beautiful when you wash it. So we are normal, and sometimes we have good moments, and sometimes we have not so good moments.
Definitely.
And one of the things that Kathy reminded me during a stretch where I had some not good moments, because if you listen to the last podcast, I'm just a whiny piece of shit, getting overwhelmed by the house. I realize that it's terrible. So one of the things that you talked about was gratitude.
Yeah.
So there is a button in here called Give Appreciation. So
Okay.
it says, the more couples look for positive little things in their relationships and acknowledge them, the more they admire and trust each other.
This is true.
So I thought it'd be a
The
good
little
segue.
things. We talked about that in micro connections.
Yeah, but please don't say the little things, because I've got guy friends that listen and they're just going to rip on me.
Uh-huh.
So, how to use this deck: build fondness and admiration by using these simple phrases as examples of things to thank your partner for, or just scroll through and show your partner the screen if it's hard for you to express yourself out loud.
Interesting.
Yep.
Thanks for doing the dishes is one example. Thanks for making dinner. It was delicious. Thanks for cleaning up the kitchen. We do all of this.
So I wanted to say
Thanks for
something
doing
to
the
you.
laundry.
So let's have
Like yesterday,
three-
you made the bed, and I was like, "Thanks for making the bed, babe."
Yep. So let's give 3 gratitudes.
Okay.
You, one after the other. You go.
I want to thank you. I love when you bring me matcha in bed. My matcha with oat milk, and I like it hot. And
You do like it, huh?
I do like it
The
hot.
matcha?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, you're just perpetually hot.
Mm.
But no, I love that you bring me matcha in bed. That's so sweet. I love that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for all that you do at this house, because I realize I need to step up a bit more when I go to the bathroom. By the way, our bathroom in the first floor is also our
You
kitchen.
need to step up a bit more when you go to the bathroom.
Well, I didn't tie that together.
You might want
Might
to
have put
tie
a
that
comma
one
in
together.
there or a hyphen.
That's kind of just
When I walked
dangling
into
out
the
there.
bathroom this morning downstairs, I realized that there were dishes cleaned in the bathroom, because we created a little section in our
sadly,
bathroom.
we clean our dishes in the bathroom right now. So don't. They're clean. I swear.
Yeah, but that's just what we have to do. So I realized, because I'd take them out then, right, to
Yeah.
put them away, and then I did some more. So I want to thank you for, despite the mess around us, you doing your best to try to make it feel clean.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Next. Your turn.
So
That's all you got?
that's all I got. No, you're constantly doing little things for me. Always, always, always. How about when I was traveling? We just talked about this morning. I just had a flight back from Santa Fe, and it was stuck in Dallas overnight because of weather in Dallas. And I was on the phone with you, and you were my knight in shining armor, because while I was flying, you found out whether there was another flight to be had. There wasn't. You made arrangements for which hotel I could go to, that you found one with a shuttle. You found one that took my Capital One points. You spent hour to 2 hours helping me. And as you pointed out, it's something I've been in that situation before. I've traveled extensively, and I have had to manage that on my own when I've been stuck somewhere. But it's so wonderful to have a partner say, let me figure this out for you. It just is so wonderful to be held up like that. It's almost like,
Do not.
what?
You're welling up.
Oh, stop it. But it reminds me of, how we care for our children. So we just want to take care of them and just scoop them up. And how can we make their lives and their moments easier? And we know they're stressing, and how can I relieve it? And it just feels so good to step in and take care of our children. And we don't always know what that feels like on the other side. And you were really taking care of me.
You're
and
welcome.
I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
You, next.
Okay. Thank you
How
for
am I wonderful?
Thank you for reminding me how wonderful you are.
Anytime.
Thank you while you're away in New Mexico for coordinating things with Pat and all the other providers that had to come into the house, the painter and all that other stuff, because I know you were doing that while I was away. So that made a hell of a difference for me while I was here with the electricians and everything else that was going on, plus my regular job.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for working remotely. I really
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
On that note, that was the Gottman. So we highly recommend downloading the Gottman app.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty cool. Pretty
All right.
cool. So we'll throw those in occasionally. I think it should be interesting. We have not done these. That was our first one. So we're going to learn as we go.
Good podcast.
I think it was.
It's always
Hopefully
good.
there's something. Well, let's not pat ourselves on the back too hard. We might cramp, but
to shout back out to Wisconsin Tim again.
yeah.
She said we're getting better at this, and I think the last thing I'll say is, there's a mantra that I always say: patience, persistence, consistency, everything.
Yes.
And so it does take time to get things rolling. You need we talked about this before. You got to get sea legs with this stuff. You got to get familiar. So,
Well, it statistically, it shows that when someone is successful at whatever it is, running a marathon, starting a business, whatever, it really is that the core of what made it successful was not that they had more drive than the next person, or they are smarter than the next person, or they had more money to do that thing. It's that they just remained consistent. They did not, they persisted. It's that persistence. Just it's the not giving up.
Well, we watched that little TED clip from the woman who wrote the book Grit.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that we keep at this. This means a lot to me personally to
It
do
does
this
to me
podcast.
too.
Not that it doesn't. I know it does.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we had some moments where we drifted away, not from each other, but from the podcast, just because
The house shit
so
took over.
busy.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that, I'm going to leave with one gratitude thing for you.
Okay.
Thank you for saying, let's do the podcast this morning. You were the one that
Absolutely.
said, hey, let's do the podcast.
Yes,
So
before
thank
we
you.
go on our walk and run our errands, because that's how the day just gets away.
Yep.
So
Thank
awesome.
you for that. We'll end
All
on
right.
that note. All right.
Thank
Peace,
you.
everybody. Rock on.
Peace out, people.
Peace. Bye.